Being angry with God and experiencing extreme suffering are subjects I feel aren't talked about enough. You can find plenty of videos or articles that discuss it to an extent, but when you've experienced really extreme suffering and real anger at God, a casual video or a casual article discussing the subject isn't enough. When you experience the type of suffering that leads you to a place of just utter despair and disillusionment with God, Christian cliches, Bible verses, or intellectual understanding of the subject isn't going to help you. And you can feel really isolated and alone, and that you're the only Christian experiencing this. So this is probably going to end up being a series because I have way too much to talk about on the subject. So the intended audience for this message are those who have experienced this. If you've never been in a place where you cussed and screamed and yelled and cried and snotted at God, this video is not for you. But don't worry, your time will come also. So if you haven't experienced this, please reserve your Christian cliches, Bible quotes, and holy rebukes unless you would like your time of extreme suffering to come much quicker than anticipated. To quote C.S. Lewis in his incredible book called A Grief Observed, "Talk to me about the truth of religion and I'll listen gladly. Talk to me about the duty of religion and I'll listen submissively. But don't come talking to me about the consolations of religion, or I shall suspect that you don't understand." To quote Job in Job 12:2-5, "You people really know everything, don't you? And when you die, wisdom will die with you. Well, I know a few things myself, and you're no better than I am. Who doesn't know these things you've been saying? Yet my friends laugh at me, for I call on God and expect an answer. I am a just and blameless man, yet they laugh at me. People who are at ease mock those in trouble. They give a push to people who are stumbling." I'll be quoting much from Job and C.S. Lewis's book, A Grief Observed, throughout this video. To give some context, if you've never read that book, I highly recommend you read it. C.S. Lewis wrote that book after his wife died, and he was experiencing grief and extreme suffering. The book is actually his personal journal that he published. So he kept a record of his thoughts and experiences throughout the process, raw, and he published that. And to date is the best book that I've ever read on the subject. Just like he said in the quote that I just read, when you get to this place of suffering, there is no consolation from someone quoting Bible verses at you, or telling you how you should think or you should feel or the faith you should have or what God is really like. In the same way, in the verses that I quoted in Job, he's like, do you think I don't already know these things? He's like, who doesn't know the things that you're saying? So it was the best book that I ever read on the subject because the consolation I found in it was that I'm not the only one experiencing this. It wasn't that he gave this list of answers like, when you're going through extreme suffering, here is what you do. Here's the outline. Here's the step-by-step process. He just expressed his raw grief and thoughts about God and anger at God. And reading that from a famous theologian gave me peace and consolation that I am not alone in this. And that's what I seek to do in my video. If you're in this kind of suffering, no Bible verse I throw at you is going to take that away. My intention is to make someone feel like I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. Other people have experienced these thoughts, this anger, and I'm just not the one Christian that God singled out and targeted. So the two main subjects I want to try to tackle in this video are going to be your disillusionment with God in the midst of this kind of suffering, as well as the added layer of people coming up against you, or even kicking you when you're down, like Job's friends did. And it may not even be people with ill intentions or trying to harm you or trying to rebuke you. It could be someone that, has truly good motives and intentions. They just don't understand. Proverbs 26:20 says, "Singing cheerful songs to a person with a heavy heart is like taking someone's coat in cold weather or pouring vinegar in a wound." So when you're in this extreme suffering or utter despair, say you lost your child and someone's like, "Oh, don't worry, they're in heaven. You'll see them in heaven someday." Or you just lost everything in your life and someone's like, "Don't worry, you got to keep the faith. You know God's going to get you through." That's not helpful. It feels like someone being very dismissive of your present suffering. Like Job said, you think I don't already know these things you're saying? It's one thing to know those things. It's another thing to be experiencing that kind of suffering and have people just expect you to grin and bear it and just, believe it. Like the reality that you'll see your child in heaven, or the reality that God will get you through eventually, somehow takes away what you're experiencing in the moment. It doesn't. But as painful as it is to have that added layer on top of your suffering, of people coming along and trying to encourage you that truly don't have a clue what you're going through, or even those that are kicking you when you're down, you have to come to the realization that they don't understand. And we didn't understand until we experienced this level of suffering ourselves. I think there's even a hint of that in Job. So in the beginning of Job's suffering, after he had lost so much in such a quick span of time, his first response is in Job 1:20 through 22. And it says, "Job stood up and tore his robe in grief. Then he shaved his head and fell to the ground to worship. He said, 'I came naked from my mother's womb, and I will be naked when I leave. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord.'" So Job's response in the beginning is quite different than Job's response after prolonged suffering. I see a shell-shocked Job. It just happened. Everything that happened hasn't settled yet. He is saying the correct Christian thing at this point. Praise the Lord in my suffering. The Lord gives and takes away, but his tune changes throughout the book. I think about myself and how I even viewed the book of Job in the Bible throughout different periods of my life. The first time I read Job, when I was a new baby Christian, it was religious. So it was really like, look at God rebuking Job up here at the end. What do you know, Job? Who do you think you are, Job? Then I went through extreme suffering, and in the midst of being angry with God, I couldn't even bear to read it because I'm like, look at everything that Job has suffered. And he was righteous. He didn't sin. He didn't do anything wrong. And it looks like a cruel game between God and Satan. And even though Job has done nothing to deserve this and he's in extreme distress, here comes God not saying, "I understand why you feel this way. I'm sorry you went through this. I love you. Let me comfort you." But he's like, "Who do you think you are?" And I resented that. I was like, this is cruel. Like, I don't even want to read this. I don't want to know this side of God. And it was like God was validating what his friends were saying to him, which can be really confusing because in essence, God was somewhat saying to Job the same things his friends said. But in the end, God is rebuking up his friends and telling them they got to go ask Job to pray for them before the Lord will forgive them. So that is confusing. But after some healing, I feel like I understand it better. And what I see now is incredible vindication from God for Job and what his friends did to him. So you can look at this book very differently throughout your lifetime, depending on what you've experienced. So in the same way, again, as painful as it is, people only know what they know. And people that are saying hurtful or unhelpful things to you during your time of extreme pain just means that they haven't even come close to experiencing what you have yet. But again, their time will come. And then you'll be able to turn around and comfort them correctly when they experience that kind of extreme suffering. So I want to touch on a little bit of the disillusionment you may feel with God when you're suffering this way. So the definition of disillusionment is a feeling of disappointment resulting from the discovery that something is not as good as one believed it to be. Obviously, we know that God is good. So I think about when you're discussing God using this definition, it would sound more like this. A feeling of disappointment resulting from the discovery that what you thought was good is not what God thought was good. Most people don't think that pain is good, but God does. And you can know that, but maybe you've determined how deep that pain is. Maybe you think, yeah, I'm going to get a little trial here or there, but you had no idea that the kind of pain that the Lord hands out puts you in absolute, utter, suicidal despair. Who would think that was good? And C.S. Lewis, again, touches on this in his book. He says, "Not that I am, I think, in much danger of ceasing to believe in God. The real danger is of coming to believe such dreadful things about him. The conclusion I dread is not, so there's no God after all, but so this is what God's really like. Deceive yourself no longer." And Job echoes the same sentiment in Job 23:13-17. But once he has made his decision, who can change his mind? Whatever he wants to do, he does. So he will do to me whatever he has planned. He controls my destiny. No wonder I'm so terrified in his presence. When I think of it, terror grips me. God has made me sick at heart. The Almighty has terrified me. Darkness is all around me. Thick, impenetrable darkness is everywhere. And I have experienced the exact same thing. C.S. Lewis said he feared coming to the conclusion, so this is what God's really like. And then Job is like, I am terrified of God. And I've told God that 100 times now. When you realize that the Lord will allow you to experience that level of suffering, it's terrifying. It's a new layer of God you didn't know existed in your zeal and excitement at the beginning of your salvation. I'm also reminded of another work of C.S. Lewis, his book, which was also a movie, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. In that scene where the kids asked the beavers about Aslan, is he safe? And they said, safe? Of course he's not safe, but he's good. I understand that clearly now. So I'll leave you with a final thought for this video. I want this to be a series, and I want to keep these videos short because I know people don't have time to listen to 30-minute, hour-long videos. So I want to divide it up in little short videos that I'll try to keep under 15 minutes or so. So here's the thought I want to leave you with. If God was nothing like you thought he was, if God actually didn't love us, if he was unbelievably cruel and enjoyed our pain, what could you do about that? Do you really think that coming to that conclusion and therefore flipping the bird to that kind of God would change the fact that he would still be God and is still in control of everything? Just because you didn't like the attributes of God wouldn't mean that he wasn't God or he still can't do exactly what he wants to do. Now, obviously, I don't believe that God is those things, but I think the question is important. If you're going to start to accept some of the attributes of God, some of the actions of God that you dislike, that are painful, are not going to change just because you dislike them. And the refusal to accept it will keep you in despair, will keep you in your anger at God, and prevent you from experiencing the healing that you so desperately need. So again, the question is, if God was everything you fear and the opposite of what you thought, what can you do about it?